It's finally time to start saying Straido Generation in Standard, as Gear Chronicle is finally here in the Standard format with no G-Zone, which is obviously the most shocking part about it, but they still made it work with just main deck cards by introducing or while adding the Grade 4 to the main deck. So the deck builds are pretty wild. They're nothing like all the other standard decks that you've seen, but this is the only way to make the deck work, and it works pretty damn well too, with the sole exception that you only run 4 grade 3s, therefore you're gonna be doing your G assists or V assists, whichever you prefer, pretty often. But without any further ado, let's take a look at the deck itself. So our starter is the Primordial Drago Kid, or Primordial I think it is, and it is a Force clan, so make sure you have your Force markers. Same skill as always. Then our main and only grade 3 is Lost Legend. So this buddy fight looking ass dude, he is kind of like, people have theories that he's a lost warrior because Gear Chronicle is all about the future, and in the future Mystery Flare is just a dead husk of metal in the Stride version. That's why he looks so good in his original version before he died in the future, I guess. So this is essentially a hero or something along those lines that is like lost in time, and that's why nobody remembers him. But anyway, we're gonna go over his very unique skills. So the first one of which is an Act Vanguard Circle. You may choose one or more cards with the sum of their grades being 3 or greater from your hand and discard them. Then you search your deck for up to one grade 4 card, write it as stand, shuffle your deck, and at the end of that turn, retire that unit and write a grade 3 card from your soul as rest. Then the second skill, when rode upon, you may counterblast 2 and draw a card. So literally striding. And also if you go first, you can stride all your opponents on grade 2, which is even better. So this is a super nice card. It makes the whole deck work really nicely because the deck needs the draw support to draw into your combo pieces and also to make up. So some cards bind from hand and then they draw in exchange, and then you also need to draw into your stride fodders, you need to draw into basically everything because you're also going to be G assisting because you only run 4 grade 3, so expect to G assist almost every game. In my, like, I don't know, 15 games of testing with this deck, I G assisted, maybe, I think I didn't G assist like 2 or 3 games maximum. So be ready to G assist, but this deck draws a lot, as we can see from that second skill. So you really don't have to worry about it too much. As this discard cost for the striding, you're either going to discard the grade 3 or one of your grade 4s, and there's also grade 1 stride fodder in standard as well to help you do that. But also the gimmick of this card is that when you write it, you get the force marker, and at the end of each turn after you undo the stride, you're going to be able to rewrite him again to get another force marker, thus providing 2 force markers per turn, making it basically the gimmick of this deck, that it kind of like leaps forward in time to get extra force markers that normally clans shouldn't be able to get. So very cool, awesome card, and just makes the deck really fun overall. In terms of our grade 4s slash strides, we're playing 4 of the Mystery Flare Dragon and 3 of the Idealized Dragon. So let's go over each of them separately. So the 4 of, which is the Mystery Flare, unplaced Vanguard Circle, use all of the effects below according to the grade total of the face-up cards in your bind zone. So it really looks at the cards that consist your bind zone and how the grades add up. So if you have a 3 and a 4, then you can have grade 7. So for example, the first effect is when you have 3+ grades in your bind zone, he gets an extra drive check, thus being like a usual stride with the 3 drive checks. Then if you have 7+ grades in your bind zone, he gets an extra crit, 13+, and you can choose 6 of your units and they get power plus 10k until end of turn, and 19 or more, then he gets the skill that at the end of the turn, you may discard your entire hand and you get an extra turn, but you cannot ride. So this happens at the end of the turn, so you don't have to discard until the end of that specific turn. Obviously, it's quite hard to get this skill off because 19 grades is really a lot. You have to bind a lot of your grade 4s and grade 3s in order to actually make that happen, and it's actually pretty hard. Even if you have a lot of binding in the early game, it just like really depends on how consistently you can keep binding throughout the entire game. What's cool is that striding in standard happens in the main phase, which means that you can call a lot of your other grade 2s and grade 1s that bind cards first, and then go into the grade 4, which then calculates how many grades consist in your bind zone in order to apply those effects. So usually it's always best to use all of your cards that bind your stuff and then go into the stride to actually apply those effects. So that's Mystery Flare. He's the best one of all in my opinion, because even just with those first 2 to get an extra drive +1 crit, that's already really strong. And then if you get 13 or more, you just go into him. I don't usually, I think I only in 2 games I had the 19 or more requirement. It's really rare. Honestly, don't expect it to go off very often, but if it does, then that's perfect. But usually you're hitting for the first 2 plus the third one in late game, but even then, when you don't hit the first 2, you're going to be going for the Idealized Dragon, who has the same kind of application. So when placed, activate all of the effects below according to the sum of the grades of the face-up cards in your bind zone. So the first one of which is, when you have 1 or more grade, your opponent chooses one of their rearguards and puts it on the bottom of the deck, so it's the rewind mechanic from early Gear Chronicle in G. Then if the grades are 5 or more, you take the top card of your deck and call it to a rearguard circle, so that's already a +1, which is nice. And then 11 grades or more, you choose 2 cards from your drop zone and call them to separate rearguard circles, and for that turn, 3 of your rearguards get +5k power. So when you're between 11 and 13, you're probably going to want to go into him. He's also nice if you have, like, I don't know, just a grade 2 or a grade 1 bound, then you go into this just to bot deck something of your opponent. If you're at 5, sometimes you don't go into the Mystery Flare because the +1 drive isn't doing as much as bot decking one of your opponent's cards plus getting a 1 card off the top of your deck. So you're actually plussing the same amount as with Mystery Flare, but you also manage to minus your opponent, which is actually better. And then the 11 or more, it really depends. I think it's okay. Depends. If your hand is really just like defensive and you don't have any offensive cards and everything is in your drop zone, then sure, you go into him. But otherwise, I think Mystery Flare is the better one of the 2, but they're still both really nice regardless. Next up, getting to the grade 2s, the first one we have is Lost Break Dragon. So he has a Vanguard and Rearguard Circle skill. When placed from hand, you may bind 1 card from your hand. If you do, you draw 1. So that way you're balancing out the amount that you bind with the amount that you draw, and you can bind your grade 3s, your grade 4s, basically anything from your hand. And it's good because you can do this early game before you even ride into grade 3. That way you can set up for one of these really early, and that's very nice because this also works on Vanguard Circles, so I like that a lot. His second skill is Rearguard Circle only. During your turn, if you have any face-up cards in your bind zone, he gets +3k power, so 13k attacker, very nice because you want to be hitting those force numbers easily. He's just a great card overall, very solid and very nice. Next up is the Nabu. So he has Rearguard Circle skill when he attacks a Vanguard, so this is the only grade 2 that is not on main phase but when he attacks, which makes him a really good call target with the Idealized because he calls from drop zone, so you cannot activate any of the when placed from hand effects. So when he attacks a Vanguard, you may bind a card from your drop zone, and your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater cards from their hand until the end of that battle, and then at the end of that battle, you put him into your soul to draw 1 card. So it's nice because he accelerates your bind zone, he gives you extra soul in exchange for drawing a card, and you do use the soul for some cards in this deck, so that is important. And he also has a guard restriction on top of all that for no cost whatsoever outside of the binding, which you want to be doing anyway, so I don't really see that as a cost. So he's a really nice card overall, and that's why I prefer to play him as a 4 of. And finally we have the Reboot, or Lipid. Her skill is, when she's placed from hand on Rearguard Circle, you can bind 1 card from your drop zone, and then she gains +3k power until end of turn. So this is a nice card because she's just a 13k attacker, but binding something in main phase is pretty important because you want to cool down her, you want to cool down your Lost Break, bind some cards, and then go into your stride and actually apply these effects. So that's why she's pretty good. I'm not sure actually, I would maybe even put down the Nabu to 3 to play 4 of her, because Nabu's good, but sometimes it's like the battle phase bind isn't as nice as the main phase bind in this deck because of the kind of stride ruling in standard, so that's why I kind of would maybe shift this around, but it's really up to you. So this is just, you know, what I decided to go off with. Going into grade 1s, the first one we have is Memenne. So she has a Rearguard Circle skill once per turn, so per card per turn, so if you have 2 of her, you do it twice. When your Vanguard is placed, draw a card and discard a card from your hand. If you discarded a grade 3 or greater, you choose 3 of your units and they get +5k until the end of turn. So really nice card because this works when you ride, this works when you use Lost Legends skill to stride, and it also works at the end of turn when you retire your grade 4 to re-ride Lost Legend, meaning you can not, let's say you don't activate it when you ride grade 3 first time, you call down your field in the main phase, go into your grade 4, activate this to draw 1, discard the grade 3, then pump everything by, well, pump 3 units by plus 5k, and it's really nice because combined with Idealize you get sort of a mini Soul Saver, or even combined with Mystery Flare's third skill, you get a mini Soul Saver, and that's very nice. And then on top of that, if you're fishing for some cards, or let's say your drive check was really bad and you didn't draw into anything defensive, at the end of turn when you re-ride Lost Legend, you can activate her skill to draw 1, discard 1, and then maybe you draw into something better, let's say like a PG that you didn't drive check into, and you know, you're able to survive the next turn, so that's why you play 4 of her. Sometimes you just like, if you go first, you ride grade 1, call her behind, pass. And just because then you ride grade 2 and you can keep cycling, it's also good in early game because that way you can keep draw discarding until you hit a Lost Legend, and then you might not need to actually G-assist, which is good because the deck wants to do that. By an extent, this is also what the Lost Break does because you bind and draw. And so that's why I like these cards quite a lot, because they help you fish out the Lost Legend before you actually have to G-assist for him. So that's why she's a really good card that's played at 4 of. Next up is our Stride Fodder. So the second skill of this little guy is when you discard this card, it would be discarded as a grade 3. So it's basically a Stride Fodder, and it also has a first skill, which is Vanguard Circle only. When its attack hits anything, you can bind 1 card from your hand to draw 1. Again, something that helps us bind cards and helps us fish out Lost Legend in the early game. So riding into him isn't bad at all, and he's just a great card, but sadly that skill is Vanguard Circle only, so he won't be doing anything else after that except for being a Stride Fodder, so do keep that in mind. And last grade 1 is a really important one, but I can only really fit her in 3 times, which is the Promptly Worker. So Rearguard Circle, when placed from hand, you choose 1 card from your drop zone and put it on the bottom of your deck. If that card was grade 3 or higher, you may Soul Blast 2, and if you do, you draw 1 card. This is really important because sometimes we draw into our grade 4s way too early, and we just go through all of our grade 4s way too fast, and if this deck does not have any grade 4s left in deck, you're just a sitting duck with a bunch of force markers. So sometimes that's not bad, but you're basically playing vanilla outside of, you know, stuff like the Nabu, and you just have like a bunch of force markers on the field and that's it, but you really want to be going into the strides, especially in late game, so that's why you want to keep the workers in your hand until the late game to put back like a Mystery Flare that like you finally set up your 20 grade cards in your bind zone, but you ran out of Mystery Flare, so you just use her, put the Mystery Flare back, and then you put on the bottom of the deck so that even if you draw with the second part of the skill, you will not draw into it, and then you're able to use the Lost Legend after that to go into the Mystery Flare and win the game. So really important card. I play her as a 3 of. I'm not sure if you can really afford to take anything out because both of these are really important, and every other card in this, like, it's really clutch and it's just hard to fit in anything basically. And then finally for the trigger lineup, it's very straightforward. 4 draws, 8 crits, 4 heals. No other standard deck that I've ever played decks out as much as this, because you draw a lot, you drive check more than other decks, you cull from your deck, like you're doing so much stuff that just runs through your deck super fast. You have things like this that draw a lot, you have so many things that draw that you run through the deck super fast, you search your deck for specific cards a lot, and the deck just decks out super fast. So 4 draws maximum, do not play more. 8 crits is perfect because you need that extra crit pressure on a lot of these cards, because the only one that gains a crit is the Mystery Flares, that if you go into the Idealize, you still want to have some pressure, and so that's really important. And 4 heals just staple, obviously you're going to be playing them. So this is what the deck looks like. So now let's take a look at how it looks in game. And we're off. So this time we're going to be playing against FunFragger once again, who is known for commentating Worlds last year with me. He'll be using Nova Grappler. It's one of his personal favorites, and actually I had a pretty tough time against it. I think Aquaforce falls under the same radar in a sense, because there are these really hard rush decks, whereas this is a deck that really takes its time, and even though it draws a lot of cards, like every card is pretty important, and overall it was just a struggle actually playing against Novas. And that's why I was surprised myself, honestly. I was like, oh, Novas, I mean, that's a pretty like easy matchup most of the time, but I mean, the deck performs pretty well against everything else, but against this one clan it was actually a little bit of a struggle. But here you can see I dropped down the Memene, and I also used the Stride Fodder to attack first, and it hit, so I could bind one card from my hand to draw one. And here I'm already on a really good start because I got my Stride Fodder as the grade 1 ride, which gave me the on-hit pressure, and I got Lost Legend without having to G-assist, and I hit a defensive trigger, meaning this is a 1 to pass, and actually he gets the crit, which hits me for 2 damage, so maybe I should have actually guarded that, because that's actually pretty huge against a clan like Nova Grappler, or any Axel clan really. So here I ride into the Lost Break, I bind a grade 2 from my hand, and I'm able to now I think I'm at 5 grades bound, which is definitely very nice. I use the Memene to draw 1, discard 1, and then I attack with the Nabu to bind another Nabu, and now I should be at grade 7 in my bind zones. Now the Nabu goes into the soul, I draw 1, and now I attack with the Lost Break on his rear guard because there's no real point to give him more damage at this point, and so he's gonna guard that actually, but I get a crit and it goes through. I guess if I would have attacked Vanguard, I would have actually hit him up to 4 damage, which would have made the game a bit easier. So maybe in that retrospect I should have actually played a bit differently, but you know, that's just my own kind of misplay in that sense, I guess. I was really overestimating that burst riser there, I think, and in general when I'm playing against Axel clans, I think oftentimes I focus a bit too much on getting rid of their annoying rear guards when, honestly, against a lot of them, there's just too many rear guards in the end to get rid of them all, unless you're playing something like Narukami or Kagero, which can consistently keep popping stuff. So that's why it's a little bit of a difficult matchup in my opinion, with a clan that doesn't have this much like mass retire. So that's a little bit of an issue, but I managed to guard that as a 2 to pass, but he just goes all in there as well. So that's what I said, why it's a pretty hard matchup at times, because the deck just kind of defies logic every now and again. So I'm going to ride the Lost Legend, get a Force Marker, going to use the Memene to draw 1 and discard 1. I'm going to discard the other Memene. Now I have, what, like 7 grades bound, so I'm able to either go into the Mystery Flare or into the Idealize. With the Mystery Flare, I now get the crit and also the extra drive check, which is nice. I use Lost Legend skill to counterblast 2 and draw 1. I call down the Lip Pit, and now I'm able to bind 1 card from my drop zone to give her plus 3k buff. I bind one of my Mystery Flares, so now I should have a total of 11 grades face up in my bind zone, which is pretty huge. So here with a triple drive I'll be pretty well off. So I get a draw into a heal, which is a bit unfortunate. I would have loved to heal there because being on 5 damage on the 3rd turn does hurt quite a bit, even though I didn't G-assist this game, which is a miracle in its own. Here I accidentally shuffle my Vanguard circle in it, essentially. But the Mystery Flare retires at the end and Lost Legend re-rides, and I get another Force Marker. So that's the end of that turn. FunFragger rides into the Ashura Kaiser, which is probably the best grade 3 that Nova Grappler has at the moment. You know, I'm still waiting for that extra Nova Grappler support because it's been such a long time now, and the clan has had, like, it topped here and there a bit earlier in the game, but it hasn't done much ever since, and so everybody's kind of waiting for that extra Nova Grappler support, hoping that it's actually going to be good next time. So he gets a heal, this time doesn't go all in because I know past his attack, because at this rate I'm just like, I better know past everything or I'm going to die. So he's still got quite a few attacks going forward. He's attacking with a Burst Riser and still has the crit that's attacking, and I had no other choice but to guard with my Perfect Guard, so that's quite unfortunate. I call down the Lost Break, I bind my grade 0 because that's the only thing I could realistically bind, because I'm not going to bind my Stride Fodder, obviously. Here I'm just checking if what kind of grade 4s I still have left in the deck. So here I discarded the Mystery Flare and I can go into the Idealize. I think I have one more Mystery Flare left, so I'm considering, yeah, I think I don't go into that just yet, but I do have 11 grades face up, I believe, so I should be able to do all the effects. Here I accidentally called the Nabu and forget to resolve Idealize. So here my opponent's gonna select one of his crits to put at the bottom. I'm gonna top deck call a draw trigger, which is a bit unfortunate, and then I'll be able to call 2 more cards from my drop zone and give 3 units plus 5k. So I call another Idealize, and I'll be able to call a Memene, which is the best target because she's just an auto, not a on place from hand ability, so that's very nice. I give the 5k to my draw trigger and my 2 units on the side, and so that's gonna be how it goes. So here I'm attacking with the Idealize with a 25k plus the 6, so 31. I get 2 drive checks, one of them is a crit, which is pretty nice, you know, good start. I put the power on the other Idealize. He gets a crit and a heal, but he's not able to heal, but now he's on 32k power, which is quite a lot, to be honest. So here I'm attacking with a 23 plus a 5k on this one, so it's 33 in total, so he does have to guard that. And this Idealize is hitting for quite a lot, and I believe I just hit Vanguard on this one because, or no, I'm actually not sure where I hit it at. Yeah, okay, I hit Vanguard in the end, but it's only for 1 damage, so he just takes it and loses one of his grade 3s. Idealize gets retired, and I get another force marker on the Vanguard circle. I kind of like going Vanguard, then 1 rearguard circle, then another Vanguard, and then another rearguard circle in terms of my force marker distribution. Here I'm using my second Memene that I culled with the Idealize because they're once per turn, but I only used the one behind the Vanguard, so I use the second one now because I wanted to try and draw into a better defensive card, but I didn't actually get that much. Here, I honestly, looking at this hand, I'm going to need a heal trigger to survive it because it's a very dangerous board that he has. Now I have to guard with a 5k, so I intercept. Here I have to guard with a 5k, so I drop the Nabu. Here I have to guard with a 5k, so I drop the Memene. Here he's attacking with a 32, so I have to drop the heal trigger to guard it. And that's, you know, that's just pretty unfortunate because that's a Vanguard attack that I have to protect against now, which is attacking me for 12, meaning I can drop the 10k, putting myself at 23, so that's a 2 to pass from him. He gets 1 grade 1 and a grade 2, meaning he can stand something, and that kind of sucks because here he's going to be able to actually finish me off because he has 2 attacks left and I can only guard 1 of them, so I guard that one, but I get the heal trigger on that last one, which is definitely good, but it goes to show that because I, you know, the main factors are that I didn't guard against his Vanguard when, you know, I could have easily no-passed it in the early game when he crit me after 1 defensive trigger, because I think that's just the logic thing to do. And then on top of that, he also, I didn't attack his Vanguard earlier when I attacked the Burst Riser in like turn 2 or something, which would have put him to 4. So I think those 2 mistakes actually almost lost me the game there. But here, I used the, well, actually, essentially I used the Worker to put back my Mystery Flare, and then I Soul Blasted 2 to draw 1, praying that I draw a Stride Fodder, but guess what, I didn't. So this is just me attacking with the Worker for a 23 if I'm not mistaken. So I'm attacking for big numbers, and he's on 5 damage, so here I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can push this through just with big numbers, you know, just hoping to God that maybe I can do it. But now I'm attacking with my last, with my Idealize for, I believe, 21, but he has just enough. Oh no, I think I attacked with 31, but he had just enough, the 20k shields to guard that. And honestly, now looking at my hand, I have 2 15k shields and a 10k shield, no intercepts. Honestly, unless he doesn't call anything, and he doesn't get a grade 2, nor a grade 3, nor a grade 0, if his drive checks are just grade 1s, then I can survive this. But it's looking pretty damn sad. So here he attacks with the crit, I guard that, he attacks with the maximum, I have to drop everything, and here he attacks for 12k, so 1 to pass, gets the grade 3 to stand the maximum riser, so you can counterbox 1 and stand to give it the extra power, gets another grade 3, stands the crit, gives it extra power, so I am only surviving this with a heal, which I don't get, and that's the end of that game. So that's it for this deck preview. Honestly, I find the deck really fun, and while it is pretty unconventional and at times it has some really bad matchups, it's still quite fun, and it does manage to get some wins against quite a few matchups as well. I think the Protect matchup, it does quite well because it has just a lot of different pressure points, it buffs up the field quite well, but it's the Axel clans that it kind of struggles against especially, so that's why this wasn't as good. I think the game that I picked for this deck preview, even though I lost, I think it shows off a lot of the strengths of the clan, but at the same time I made some bad decisions like attacking the Burst Riser, or, you know, not defending against that Vanguard attack after I got 1 defensive trigger, which would have actually changed the tides of the game, and I potentially could have won because I had quite a good standing, I had a really good early game as well, therefore I think I could have done better if I had just played it out in that way. So that's just some of the small misplays from my side that I think could have changed this game quite a bit, but I hope that doesn't ruin the viewing experience for you guys. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today, so that's going to be the first of the Answer of Truth deck previews. Next up is going to be Genesis, followed by Great Nature, so I hope you look forward to that. I'm trying to release them one after another, more or less, in these 2 weeks before the set releases in English, but if they do take a bit longer than that, I do apologize, but I'm trying my best to get everything out in time, and then go on to Narukami, Gold Paladin, as well as Nubatama, so please do look forward to that. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today. Don't forget to click the bell button as well as check out the second channel, also check out the social medias, and join the Discord channel if you haven't already. But on that note, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.